Let me ask you a question. You have a best friend? How big would it shock you if somebody told you that your best friend just killed somebody?
Not a what's your emergency?
Someone on every line said they kidnapped my son, and they're demanding $500,000.
On September 12th, 1995, 12-year-old McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas. It was a crime that shocked the community because the suspect was so unlikely, so unexpected.
Former high-ranking police official. He'd run for sheriff at one point.
Law enforcement personnel were pretty much split down the middle over whether or not he actually did this.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, still feels that justice was never truly served.
I've asked myself so many times, what in the world happened?
Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 363 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing really well, man. I'm having a good week.
You're just top of the world.
All right, Leo. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs. We had Rodney.
Hey, Rodney.
Stephanie Leopold.
What's going on, Leopold?
Rama Johnson.
Hey, thanks, Johnson.
Erica S.
Hey, there's Erica.
Wilder.
Wilder.
Lindsay Clark.
Hey, Lindsay.
Aaron Manning.
Appreciate that, Aaron.
Jess.
What's going on, Jess?
Donnell Stacy.
Ah, good old Donnell.
Deborah Watts.
What's up, Watts?
And last but not least, Sage.
Hey, Sage.
And then we go back into the vault. This week, we selected Cassandra Rupert.
Thanks, Rupert.
We also had a great PayPal donation on behalf of Theo and Christopher, the Greek boys.
Yeah.
So how about that?
A little Greek, you know? I used to go to Greece now and then and do some carving out the marble sculpture.
Do they carve marble or do they chisel it?
Well,
let us know.
Sometimes I have to chisel, sometimes I carve, you know.
Depends on which bits and pieces you were working on.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'd be careful with that Zeus.
I know you did a lot of nudes, but
yeah.
We have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time where we're talking about this guy Stephen Allwine, and this is a fascinating case. It's got a lot murder for hire. But we're on the dark web.
We are.
We're talking about Bitcoin and scamming people and murder.
I had to get special permission from you-know-who to even do any research, you know, because technically I'm not allowed to be on the dark web anymore.
Right. And you did seem to have a lot of knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Which scared me a little bit. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're talking about the disappearance of Rebecca Coriam. Rebecca Coriam was a 24-year-old British citizen who worked on a Disney cruise ship. She disappeared from the ship in March 2011. Company officials theorized that she was swept overboard by a powerful wave. However, Rebecca's family and private investigators suspect that she was harmed in some way. So we have competing theories, or a number of theories here. It's not surprising to me that, you know, when you look at officials of Disney, they may have one theory of what happened that is a little more accidental, and the family is not sure about that, because we also have some video, and we're going to talk about that as we go through the episode.
You know what scares me about all that is that whole open water. You know, that if you do get swept out or you do fall, whatever happens, you see that boat just kind of going away and you're still just floating out there in that deep open water.
And nobody's looking for you because they don't know that you've gone overboard or something has happened to you. It's a scary thought to be out in the middle of the ocean by yourself.
Yeah, especially at night and you feel something touching your feet. Be like, hey.
Well, we've all seen Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
Rebecca was originally from Chester, a city in England. The Guardian reported that Rebecca earned a sports science degree from Exeter University. She earned a degree in youth studies from Liverpool Hope University. Rebecca was known for being an active person. According to the LA Times, she competed in triathlons. In her free time, while studying in Exeter, she got into surfing. And she was also a member of her university basketball team.
That's really pretty athletic.
Yeah. So it sounds like she was very athletic. You know, when you talk about people doing triathlons in their free time,
right?
That's a concept that is just hard for me to grasp.
You know, it was for me too, until that 2007 year when I was able to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was kind of...
Is that the same year you did the Tour de France?
It was, and it was also because I thought I just didn't have time because I was so busy getting that third PhD.
Yeah.
But it all worked out.
I just can't see putting my body through something that grueling for fun. And I know people do it.
They love it, man.
And I'm sure it's a high. I've just never experienced it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that I never will.
You know, and you're the type of person that if you chose to do it, you would go all out for it.
I go all out in pretty much everything I do.
Yeah.
I just choose carefully what I actually try to do.
And a lot of times it involves swimming in the ocean, and we know how you feel about the ocean.
Yes, I'm out.
Yeah.
In June 2010, Rebecca was interviewed for a position with Disney Cruise Line. She was selected out of hundreds of applicants. Now, I've been on a number of cruises.
Sure.
I've never been on a Disney cruise.
I would think they would be pretty exciting.
Yeah. This makes it sound as though they have a pretty tough screening process. You know, if she was selected out of hundreds of applicants, it may be a little tough, maybe, to get a job on the Disney Cruise Line. I don't know.
I would think you would need a certain type of personality, like energetic, and you got to be good with kids.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is not the adult party all night cruise. There's going to be a lot of kids on a Disney cruise.
For sure.
Rebecca worked as a youth activities coordinator. She loved her job and she enjoyed the travel opportunities that came with it. She was well liked by the staff and formed close relationships with some of her coworkers.
Hey, if you're going to be on a cruise ship, probably a good thing to do. You know, get along with everybody and have some good relationships.
Well, and I think it's probably an atmosphere where you can form some pretty close friendships. You're going to be with these people day in, day out for an extended period of time. One friend told The Guardian, she was the most amazing little burst of energy. You were completely drawn to her. She loved life, bouncing around all the time. She was one of my best friends, but it could get a bit much. You come in from a heavy night and she'd be zapping around everywhere, playing tricks on you. She's very mischievous.
Oh, one of those over-energized persons.
Yeah, and I think we've all known people like that. In a situation where you should be completely zapped from the day, they're still going like the Energizer Bunny.
That could get on some people's nerves.
It can.
Yeah.
Rebecca traveled to Florida for 4 months of training. After she finished training, she spent 4 months working on cruises to and from the Bahamas. She then returned to Britain for a 2-month break. And we were talking about it on Patreon, but I did go on a cruise this past Christmas with the family. It was a lot of fun. And I was talking to kind of the head waiter, the guy who, you know, came to the table every night.
Right.
And he was kind of explaining his schedule. And it was a pretty grueling schedule. It was, you know, every day, 7 to 7 or whatever it was. I forget exactly. But then he got like 2 to 3 months off. So for those 9 months or whatever it was, he was go, go, go all the time.
Sometimes I think it could be a fun job for a young person.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do 7 days a week for 9 months straight, if that's what it is. I'd love to have 3 months off, but I think I'd need more than 3 months if I did 9 months with no time off.
Yeah, maybe like a month on, month off, month on, month off.
Rebecca's next assignment was on the Disney Wonder, a ship based in Los Angeles. According to The Guardian, crew members on the Wonder sleep in windowless cabins below sea level. They're contracted to work 7 days a week for 4, 6, and 8 month stretches, followed by a few months off. So that does kind of follow what this guy was telling me. Now, this says 4, 6, and 8. He was more into the 8 or 9, it sounded like.
I feel like cabin fever would come into play here.
Having no window whatsoever.
Right.
It could be a little rough. Former staff member Kim Button, who wrote a blog about working on the Disney Wonder, wrote that employees had staff meetings at 2 a.m., which basically was the only time people weren't working. She also wrote that the crew pool is one of the few places where staff can hang out with each other without worrying about behaving improperly in front of guests.
That's the one place they could be non-Disney like
themselves.
Yeah.
Or not have to put on. Because, let's face it, some people are naturally bubbly, but I feel like if you're working at Disney, either at the park or on the ship, you got to put on a bubble.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
You got to go over the top. I'm sure that's what they expect.
You're like, hi, kid.
I don't know how many people walk around just every day, every minute of the day like that.
Right.
The Wonder is registered in the Bahamas for tax purposes, according to The Guardian. And that's something you've been saying for years. I mean, you register a lot of your stuff in the Bahamas.
Absolutely.
For tax purposes. I'm sure you're happy with me disclosing that to the IRS.
I cannot make any more comments about it.
The BBC described it as the flags of convenience system, where ships are registered in offshore nations. If crimes are committed on board, it is up to the country of registration to investigate. This policy applies to most countries around the world. However, in the United States, the FBI investigates crimes at sea involving U.S. citizens, no matter where a ship is registered. Politicians have called for an end to this system in the UK.
I like that the U.S. does that.
Well, and I can understand why they would want to put an end to it in the UK as well. And I don't know if they have or not yet, but if you're a citizen, I think you would prefer to have your government or some enforcement agency within, your country investigate, as opposed to, and I'm not saying anything bad about the Bahamian police or anything like that, but I don't know. I just think you'd want someone from your own country to investigate the crime.
I'm just thinking the FBI is probably just going to have a little bit more skill set.
Oh, absolutely. Rebecca appeared to be happy with her job because she signed a third contract for a Vancouver to Alaska route after she finished her assignment on the Wonder.
That'd be a pretty cool cruise.
Yeah, that is one that's on my bucket list, is to take a cruise up through Alaska. But I do think this is important to note, right? Signing a third contract, to me, does send a message that she was pretty happy with what she was doing. Because if not, you don't have to sign on. You can walk away after the contract is up, but she didn't do that.
Yeah, sounds like she was happy and felt safe.
During her break, she planned to spend time with her older sister and visit Disney in Paris. She was going to see her parents for Easter. Sadly, Rebecca would never get to do any of these things because she disappeared from the cruise ship. According to the BBC, Rebecca was one of 18 people who went missing from cruise ships in 2011.
I think that's a big number.
Well, it does sound like a big number. What we don't have is the number of passengers who took a cruise in 2011. My assumption is that number is really big.
Yeah.
So percentage-wise, it may not be that big, but just to say 18 people disappeared, that does sound like a large number. I think by and large, cruise ships are generally considered safe environments, but crimes do happen. We've covered some before. We've seen a lot over the years.
I think when you have that many people in one space, there's always going to be potential for some type of crime.
And my other thought is, on a lot of these cruise ships, there's quite a bit of alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people drinking heavily, and obviously alcohol can lead to some altercations and things like that. Wrongdoing. Cruise ships don't hire police officers, but they do hire security personnel. BBC reported that this could lead to potential conflicts of interest because they're employed by the cruise line.
Yeah, so their interest is to protect the cruise line.
The Department of Transportation releases data about crime on cruise ships. In 2023, there were 131 reported sexual assaults, rapes on cruise ships. This was an increase from 89 reported in 2022.
I feel like that's a low number.
So 18 people went missing in 2011, 89 reported sexual assaults in 2022. Yeah, you would think there would actually be more reports than that. Now, that's not to say that that's how many occurred.
Yeah, because it's probably self-reporting, right?
Yeah. In November 2023, Florida Today reported that since 2000, 386 passengers have gone overboard from cruises and ferries. At the time of Rebecca's disappearance in 2011, there were 171 disappearances across all cruise lines since 2000. Rebecca Coriam was the first person to go missing on a Disney cruise.
Yeah, I guess if you take in consideration, I know I thought that was a alarming number, and I still do, but if you take in consideration how many people go on cruises since 2000, it does feel like cruises are relatively safe.
Yeah, no, I think so. Would you think that maybe a Disney cruise would be safer than possibly some of the other lines?
Yeah, I think you would feel that way.
And again, I said I've never been on a Disney cruise. My thought is, though, a lot of kids, a lot of parents with kids, maybe a little less partying, less young adults, just there to party, maybe, was my thought. The Liverpool Echo reported that Rebecca left the ship during an assignment to attend a family funeral. She confided in some close friends that she feared being raped or sexually assaulted on board. Her friends told her parents about Rebecca's statement after she disappeared.
Okay, that's alarming.
Yeah, it's very concerning. And we're going to talk about it, but, obviously her parents are going to be informed at a certain point that their daughter has disappeared. And then later on, they're going to be told by some of her friends about these statements. And my thought is, those statements are going to have a large bearing, on their thought process. Rebecca was on board when the Disney Wonder left port in Los Angeles in March 2011. At this time, the Wonder took weekly cruises from Los Angeles to Puerto Vallarta and Cabo San Lucas in Mexico.
Sounds like a nice cruise.
Yeah. I've never actually been to either one of those places.
Puerto Vallarta.
Easy for you to say.
I flew in there and there was a guy going, "Deplane."
How much did you have to drink on the flight in?
Mean the flight into here?
There were over 3,000 passengers on the ship. And, that sounds like a pretty good number, but the ship I was just on in December had like 8,000.
That's a lot of people on a boat.
The elevator had like 19 floors.
Wow.
It was massive. And it's not even one of the new ones. This was a Royal Caribbean ship. I think one of the new ones is over 10,000 passengers.
wait, you told me you wanted to go on this cruise with your family just to have more alone time. That's why you couldn't take me.
And nothing that I just said changes that fact.
Over 10,000 people.
And one of them was not going to be you, no matter what the passenger number was. Rebecca disappeared 3 days into the cruise. Although she was busy with work, Rebecca called and emailed her parents at least once a week. She told them about her job, her friends, and her activities outside of work. On March 21st, 2011, Rebecca messaged her parents on Facebook and told them that she would call them the next day. Rebecca was captured by a security camera at 5:45 a.m. on March 22nd. She was in the crew area using one of the ship's phones. Rebecca dialed an onboard number, according to the LA Times. She appeared upset and at one point held her head in her hands. At one point, a male coworker walked up to her and asked if everything was all right. Rebecca said, "Yeah, fine," and hung up the phone. Rebecca's father, Michael Coriam, spoke to The Guardian about the security footage, saying, "You see this young boy walk up to her and ask her if she's all right. She said, 'Yeah, fine.' Then she put the phone down. She turned around. She had her hands in her back pockets, which she always did. Then she put her hands to her head like this, pushing her hair back, and then she walked off." Rebecca's friends and family would later say the security footage suggests she was sexually assaulted and in a state of distress. Her parents theorized that she was possibly thrown overboard after she was assaulted. The footage, though blurry, shows Rebecca in oversized clothes, possibly men's clothing. According to the Liverpool Echo, her family thinks this is a sign that she threw on any available clothing to escape the cabin after she was assaulted.
I think there's a lot to read into this. You can go a lot of different directions, but to me, it does sound like there was something that had to be bothering her to go to the phone and dial somebody, right? Was she dialing security? Was she trying to get a hold of one of her friends that was working in some department on the ship? Maybe she was just so stressed out of whatever event just happened, and that's why she's putting her hands to her face, her head. I don't know.
But I think you can see why her family, would come to this possible theory. Why is she wearing these oversized clothing that possibly is men's clothing? She appears to be in distress. Well, obviously you would be in distress if you were sexually assaulted and had to throw on whatever clothes you could find to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, you're not going to waste time trying to find what you had on. You're just going to grab something and go.
Rebecca didn't show up for her shift at 9 a.m. The crew searched the ship and called the Mexican Coast Guard later that morning. The Coast Guard searched the water near the ship but didn't find her. A Disney official contacted Rebecca's parents on the evening of March 22nd to tell them that Rebecca missed her shift and could not be located. And we talk a lot about, receiving these types of calls. This is a little different scenario. Number one, you're a long ways away from where your daughter is.
Right.
They don't know exactly where she is, but wherever she is, you're a long way away. And so that helpless feeling has to be even more intense than most, I would think. You can't even get in your car and go do a search. You can't do anything.
Your stomach's going to be tossing and turning already, but then to think about if they couldn't find her on the ship, is she really in the water?
Well, it is much different, right? If you think about somebody not showing up for work in the town where they live, well, there's a lot of places that person could be in and around town. There's only so many places you can be on a cruise ship. And I'm sure they were putting it out over the loudspeaker and all of that. Mike Coriam said that they were told the investigation is ongoing when they called for updates. U.S. and Mexican Navy vessels searched international waters where the Wonder had been sailing, but did not find Rebecca. 3 days later, Superintendent Paul Roll, a detective from the Royal Bahamas Police Force, where the Wonder is registered, flew to the ship to conduct an investigation. His onboard investigation lasted a day and a half. Mike and Ann Coriam flew to Los Angeles on March 26, 2011, to meet with Disney officials and go on board. They spoke to Superintendent Paul Roll at their hotel. He gave them a short briefing, but didn't have answers due to a lack of evidence. As reported by The Guardian, they asked him if he was going back on board. He responded, "No, I'm going back to the Bahamas."
Disappointment?
On the part of the parents?
Yeah.
Absolutely. They were allowed on board after the passengers disembarked. Disney officials showed the Coriams the CCTV footage of Rebecca. They also talked to the woman she was speaking with on the phone. The woman said Rebecca was upset at first, but quickly calmed down. At the end of their conversation, she said she was going to her cabin. And apparently she didn't provide many details, and the Coriams didn't push her for answers. They felt awkward because there were several Disney officials in the room during their conversation.
See, to me, that's a big piece of the puzzle. What was said on the phone?
Oh, absolutely. What did Rebecca say to this woman on the phone? I think is huge. The Coriams thought that they would have more opportunities to ask questions, but they feel that they have not been able to do so. And my thought is that maybe they were thinking they'd get a chance to talk to this woman without Disney officials present, and that she would possibly be more open without them there. They were taken to the fifth deck crew pool. The captain told them that a pair of flip-flops were found by the pool that may have belonged to Rebecca, but no one was certain.
I'm just wondering why the detective didn't kind of walk them through this.
It sounds to me like he was done. You know, he'd spent a day and a half. He had checked things out, and he said, I didn't find anything. I'm going back to the Bahamas. But this also wasn't a citizen of the Bahamas who had gone missing. And I'm not putting, this guy down or saying anything bad against him. I'm just saying, what sense of urgency was there? Or was it just that there was nothing to go on?
Well, it could have been that too, right? I'm wondering what the girl that she talked to on the phone told him.
Assuming he interviewed her.
Well, that's the thing, right? We don't
know what his investigation involved. Officials proposed the theory that Rebecca was swept overboard in the pool area by a wave. The Coriams noticed a high steel wall behind the railings, which caused them to have doubts about this theory. Additionally, a weather analysis showed that the ocean was calm at the time of Rebecca's disappearance.
And I think there would be some type of evidence to support that. Like there was other people, 3,000 people on the boat. Did no other crew member, did no other passenger see this rogue wave?
Yeah, it's a good point. When Rebecca's parents were taken to her cabin to collect her belongings, they noticed a pair of flip-flops placed neatly on top of Rebecca's suitcase inside her wardrobe. The flip-flops were not collected for any type of forensic examination, but it was said that they were a size and a half too small for Rebecca. Her friends never saw her wearing them. They had a name and cabin number written on the side. That was not Rebecca's. It was normal for crew members to write on their shoes so they didn't lose them. Okay, that seems pretty mysterious.
Yeah.
Mike and Ann also noticed that a pair of Rebecca's shorts were ripped, which led them to believe she was in some type of violent struggle. Now, there is a lot of speculation here.
Yes.
But I understand how that could happen or why that would happen on the part of the parents. They're not buying this rogue wave theory, and you see a pair of your daughter's shorts ripped. You have this thought that potentially she was sexually assaulted. You can see where all this is going in their mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can also come up with some other reasons why the shorts could be ripped, but
yeah, absolutely.
If that's where you're thinking, then that plays into that.
Mike and Ann told the BBC they asked for a copy of the CCTV footage and were told no. They did not get to ask the crew any questions. According to articles by the LA Times and Cruise Law News, Disney claimed to have no footage of Rebecca going overboard, and they declined to disclose the number of security cameras or their locations for security reasons. And this is one of the questions that I had was, how much of one of these big cruise ships is in some type of blind spot where there is no security camera watching it? With the technology that we have, you would think most of the ship outside of people's personal rooms and stuff like that would be videoed.
Maybe these cruise ships don't want to disclose how many cameras because maybe we would be shocked to see how low the number is.
It could be. Mike and Ann also looked around the dock in Los Angeles and spoke to a worker. The worker said he remembered seeing Rebecca loading her luggage, and Rebecca allegedly said, "You never saw me," per the BBC.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, if true, it seems to take things in a much different direction.
But then you're thinking, then what? She decided to leave the cruise and go on the run and not inform her parents?
Well, and you'd also have to answer the question of how she got off the cruise ship in LA when they were searching for her.
I think it'd be very hard to get past all the people on the cruise ship and security and any cameras that happen to be around.
And she's just spotted by this one worker. Yeah, it does seem strange. The Bahamian police had concluded their inquiry by March 29th. Superintendent Paul Roll from the Royal Bahamas Police Force issued the following statement, published by BBC, with respect to the investigation into the disappearance of Miss Rebecca Coriam from the Disney Wonder cruise ship. The Royal Bahamas Police has concluded its investigation on board the vessel. At the present time, there is no evidence to suggest foul play. The case remains open and under active investigation. And I'll be honest with you, that statement doesn't surprise me at all. Now, we don't know, like I said, how good his investigation was, but you could understand that he came away with it with no evidence.
Look, if you don't have anything that's going to lead you to believe it's foul play, any evidence, what else can you say? You just have to say that it's going to remain open and under active investigation.
But how active is that investigation going to be?
Probably not that active.
How active can it be? Because, again, we're not talking about a local police force in a town. We're talking about a police force in a different country with a potential crime scene that happened on a ship that moves around all over the place.
It's putting 3,000 people on it every week.
Yes.
So if that's the crime scene, it's being contaminated week in, week out.
Yeah, it's a very different situation than most cases. In early May 2011, Rebecca's bank sent her parents an email informing them that someone tried to gain access to one of her accounts on April 19th. I think if you're her parents, what do you think? Is this her? And she really is out there alive trying to get some money? If so, why wouldn't she be able to access her accounts?
Right.
Or is this somebody just trying to hack into her accounts, something that we all experience all the time?
Or is it somebody that harmed her?
The website International Cruise Victims reported that Rebecca's card was not found among her belongings in her cabin. Mike Coriam told a British newspaper the fact that her credit card's been used could only mean someone has stolen it or she's still alive. So, I think that right there tells you where his thinking was. Months later, in September 2011, one of Rebecca's uncles said the password to her Facebook account had been changed. No one knows who changed it. These are very mysterious things that are happening.
Yeah. If it was her and she didn't want to be found, why would she change that? Why wouldn't she just let the account do whatever it's going to do when it's inactive?
Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
But also, why would somebody else want to change it? Let's say someone who had hurt her or had something to do with her disappearance. What would be the motivation for them to want to change her Facebook password other than wanting to make people think she was still alive. And possibly the same thing with using her card.
Sure. It gets them thinking that, like you said, she's still alive doing her own thing, and it had nothing to do with her being on the cruise.
In October 2011, Guardian journalist John Ronson booked a trip on the Disney Wonder to try to get information about Rebecca's disappearance. Multiple crew members spoke to him on the condition of anonymity. When Ronson spoke to a waiter and asked about the disappearance of Rebecca Coriam, the man said, "I don't know anything about it. It didn't happen. You know that's the answer I have to give." And that's a very strange statement that would lead one to believe that there was a lot of pressure put on by the corporation not to talk about this incident.
Yeah, there could have been a unofficial, official communication on what to say if asked.
And what not to say.
And what not to say.
Ronson came to the conclusion that Rebecca fell from the Deck 4 jogging track because every other possible location had railings that were too high. And we talked about it, right? Rebecca was known for enjoying exercise, and she was a frequent jogger. Ronson theorized that after she got off the phone, she went for a jog and fell. He noticed 4 CCTV cameras on Deck 4. Ronson talked to a crew member working on Deck 4 and asked if the girl who went missing in March fell from that deck. He said no, she went from Deck 5. When Ronson pointed out that there was no outside space on Deck 5, the crew member said, "Go to Deck 10, walk to the front of the ship and look down. You'll see the crew swimming pool. That's where she went from, the starboard side." When he asked how the crew member knew this, the man responded, "I was on the ship that day. Everyone knows." The worker mentioned that they found Rebecca's slipper. Ronson saw the crew swimming pool from Deck 10. There is no ocean view because the railings are behind a steel wall that goes above head height. And I think that kind of goes back to the Coriams thinking, how could she have just gone overboard from here?
Right. Be very difficult.
When Ronson spoke to the same crew member from Deck 4, he was told that crew members only sleep and shower in their cabins. They spend their free time in the mess hall or by the crew pool. And I think that goes back to your point. You know, how much time do you really want to spend in this small room with no window?
Yeah, not much.
When Ronson spoke to more crew members, he received the same response, that Rebecca jumped from the front of Deck 5 at the crew pool. One crew member said, "Disney knows exactly what happened. That phone call she had, it was taped. Everything here is taped. There's CCTV everywhere. Disney has the tape."
That's a pretty big allegation to make.
Well, it really is pointing to some type of cover-up. Now, we have no idea if this crew member knows what they're talking about or if they're correct or anything like that. But if they are, and all phone calls are taped, and there was CCTV footage, then what else could you think? But that, you know, something happened that the organization didn't want to get out because it would tarnish their reputation or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't be good for them.
This crew member introduced Ronson to one of Rebecca's close friends on board. Rebecca's friend said he didn't know what was in the security tape, but he knew she was having a fight with her partner. He described Rebecca as a lovely girl with underlying sadness. Another crew member told Ronson that suicide wasn't the only possibility, and it's possible Rebecca went overboard because of the wind. He said, "I was on the ship that day. It was a rocky day." So there is a discrepancy here of just what the conditions were, right? This person is saying it was windy, it was choppy, it was rocky. And, you know, other sources are saying that the weather from that day wasn't bad at all.
Yeah. Unless you have video evidence of what the weather was like, it's going to be difficult to prove.
But wouldn't you have that on a video somewhere?
You would think.
You know, that's the part that I struggle with in this case so far, is that just exactly what video did they have? And like you said, what exactly was talked about in the phone call?
Yeah, I think the cruise line probably has some video of what the weather was like that day. And I would think out of the 3,000 people on board, that a few of those would have had some video of the weather that day.
Ronson called Disney and received the following statement from a spokesperson. If you talk to crew members, you know Rebecca's disappearance has been difficult and heartbreaking for everyone. The police in the Bahamas are also telling us the investigation is still ongoing. They have not shared a timeline with us either. Again, I don't know how much of an investigation the police in the Bahamas could be doing later on. It's a different cruise.
Yeah, I don't know what their incentive would be at this point. They didn't really come away from their last investigation with anything that was going to require them to go back for another look.
After Ronson left the ship, a woman identified as Melissa, a fake name used by The Guardian, called him and said she last saw Rebecca at 11 p.m., the night before she went missing. They had just finished work and were chatting in a secret corridor. Rebecca asked her if she was going to the bar. Melissa said yes, but she never went. This was the last time she saw Rebecca. When asked about an alleged fight between Rebecca and her partner, Melissa said that ship absolutely seethes with rumors. Yes, she was in a relationship and there were problems and it was upsetting her. It was a very, very intense relationship. It was great and then it was awful. They were both fiery, passionate personalities. However, Melissa noted that from what she had heard, Rebecca was on the phone with a mutual friend and not the girl she was in a relationship with. Melissa mentioned that after Rebecca disappeared, Disney officials conducted a small ceremony and put flowers on the wall next to the crew pool. They didn't answer questions about why they put the flowers there. Melissa alleged Disney swears they've told us everything they know, which is that they don't know anything. But most of us think bullshit. Someone must know something. Someone's covering something up. And these are interesting takes, by different people. You had the one guy who said, that's what I have to say. That kind of hinted at, something along the lines of, well, I know something, but this is what I have to say. I have to toe the company line.
Right.
And now you have Melissa saying they're covering something up. Obviously, the family
feels that way.
Melissa did acknowledge that Rebecca was a risk taker. She speculated that Rebecca went to the pool to be alone and had no intention of harming herself. She might have climbed on the wall and sat on the ledge for the view and then accidentally fell.
Well, especially if the seas were rough that night.
Yeah, I get it. You're sitting on this ledge, things get a little rocky, accidentally fall off. No one knows. Melissa then added, security on that ship is ultra tight. You can't get on or off without your ID card. Down by the crew pool, there's HR offices, the crew gym, the crew office that deals with passports, money, documentation. And they're saying there's no CCTV cameras.
Yeah, that seems a little unlikely.
Yeah, it does to me too. It also, to me, kind of really makes the allegation that Rebecca got off in LA, loaded up her car and told the guy, you never saw me. And Melissa's saying you can't get on or off without ID. Anybody who's been on a cruise knows that that's the biggest pain of a cruise.
Right.
Is getting on and off.
The embarking and debarking.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah.
Good words. I mean, you got to, fingerprint scan, show your ID, give a left kidney, go through a metal detector, take an MRI before they let you back on.
In the anal probe.
I wasn't on that cruise.
Oh.
You must have signed up for a different one. But Melissa is really big on these CCTV cameras and basically saying she's having a hard time believing that, not a single camera with all the cameras on that ship captured something.
I find it hard to believe too. I really find it hard to believe that there was nothing down there where the crew pool was and the HR office and where they process money and documents and passports, I would think that would be a prime area for a camera, if not many cameras.
She continued saying, if it was 6 a.m. and they were doing their job and watching the front, someone must have seen her go over. Or if they didn't, they're covering up why they didn't. At a meeting of the House of Commons on November 1st, 2011, MP Stephen Mosley said Disney was more interested in getting the ship back to sea than in the case of a missing crew member. He said it was appalling that only one officer from the Bahamas was called to investigate. And I can understand what he's saying, and I think if you're the family, you would be very upset by that. One person who has nothing to do with the country you live in, the country where your daughter is a citizen, comes to the ship, investigates, and then, goes back to the Bahamas.
But is that Disney's fault if they called the acting authorities and the authorities choose to only send one investigator?
No, I'm not saying that part is Disney's fault, because I do think that's what they were supposed to do. Now, if they had more evidence, if they had camera footage, if they had anything like that and they didn't disclose it, then obviously that would be their fault. The Coriams have said they did not receive a final report and little evidence was disclosed to them. They once said that the Cheshire police did speak with the Bahamian authorities, but the British police did not do their own investigation because of a lack of jurisdiction. The Cheshire police received an interim report, which was totally and utterly unsatisfactory, in their words, and they were told not to disclose the contents to the family.
I don't know why they can't disclose what was in the file.
Oh, I took it as they could, but there was no reason to, because the report was so bad that it would only infuriate the family. That's the way I took it. I could be wrong. One day before the anniversary of Rebecca's disappearance, her father received an email from a woman who said she was 85% sure she saw Rebecca with a dark-haired man in Venice the previous August. The woman claimed she saw the family's website, and it triggered her memory.
Oh, 85%. But if you're hoping for something, 85% is probably a lot.
It is, but I think, also in these cases, there are a lot of sightings, and we talk about them quite a bit in unsolved cases. A lot of them are checked out. A lot of them are proven not to be true. And I think for the most part, it's not, out of malice on anyone's part or anything like that. They just think that they saw someone and they could be mistaken.
I mean, if it was her and she's doing this to her family, it's a really terrible thing to do.
Well, yeah, it would be a terrible thing to do. I think what we'd have to go back to is, why would she need to do that? There was nothing in the research about problems with her family that would make you think she would need to or want to cut off all communication with them, disappear. I didn't get that at all. Rebecca's uncle said it was upsetting to think she could be out there after all that time had passed, but he did note her passport was among her belongings on the ship.
Yeah, so she would need that to travel. I mean, could you get a fake passport? Yeah, but how hard is that going to be?
In March 2014, it was reported that Mike and Ann Coriam planned to sue Disney for $75,000, 45,000 pounds. The Coriams alleged that Disney failed in its duty of care. The family alleged that Disney acted negligently by waiting over 4 hours to alert the U.S. Coast Guard, more than 5 hours to contact the Mexican Navy, and almost 7 hours to call the Bahamian police. They alleged that Disney had inadequate security to monitor crew members and passengers and inadequate surveillance for a person falling overboard. A Disney Cruise Line spokeswoman said per BBC, "This incident has been investigated by the authorities. The claims are without merit, as we will demonstrate in court." In April 2016, it was reported that Disney settled with the Coriam family out of court at some point in 2015. And I thought that actually that amount was pretty low.
Yeah, I did too.
Especially for a company like Disney. $75,000 to them is like a penny falling out of your pocket.
Yeah.
Not even. Why would they want to fight that in court and go through the discovery process and possibly have to turn over things that they may not want to turn over?
Yeah, and just to go through that process alone, they're probably going to spend
way more than $75,000
with their
in
corporate
legal
attorneys.
fees. Yeah. So that kind of struck me when they said we're going to demonstrate that in court. I mean, as you and I have seen many times, even companies that believe they're on the right side of a lawsuit will settle just because it's cheaper, easier, in their best interest.
And how will it look to the public?
Yeah, I think Disney, as much as any other company in the world, does not want bad press.
No, there's something to be said about your reputation and protecting it.
In November 2015, Chester MP Chris Matheson confirmed that his team believed there was criminal activity behind Rebecca's disappearance. And this is pretty interesting. We've kind of hinted at it a little bit, but this is the first time that an official is coming out and actually saying they believe there was some type of criminal activity. Bill Anderson, a private investigator hired by the family, spoke to the Liverpool Echo about the flip-flops found on the ship. He said, "We've obtained photos of flip-flops given to Rebecca's parents, which we are 100% sure don't belong to her. We've been told staff would allow them to write their name and cabin number on them to prevent getting lost. As everyone can see, it's not Rebecca's signature and definitely not her cabin number. Mike and Ann were given flip-flops belonging to a completely different person. That throws Disney's theory that those flip-flops were found on deck 5 near to where they say she fell off into major doubt." In 2016, it was reported that UK officials planned to visit LA and the Bahamas to pursue an independent investigation. That year, private detectives drafted a list of potential murder suspects. In 2017, the media reported on a copy of the Bahamian police investigator's notes after he interviewed Rebecca's girlfriend and a male crew member. The notes were sent by the UK's Foreign and Commonwealth Office to Mike and Ann Coriam. The note stated, per the Mirror, American woman in relationship with Rebecca left to get more beer, came back, and Rebecca and male crew member who was in a relationship with the American woman chatting. She came back and all three went to male crew member's room. Male crew member had sex with both. American woman left the room again to get beer, came back, and Rebecca and male crew member had sex. So this is a kind of a shocking revelation.
Well, this is pretty critical information. It also helps explain why she might have been seen wearing men's clothes.
Or what were thought to be men's clothes. But this investigator is saying Rebecca and this woman were in a relationship. This man and this woman were in a relationship, and all three of them had sex together that night, together and apart. The detective noted that the male crew member had a very nonchalant attitude. During questioning, he was laughing and joking and even had to be given a warning. And that's always a red flag for me. I get it. There are people who just don't take anything seriously.
Yeah.
But if you're being questioned about a missing person, I just don't see where you're laughing and joking about any of the answers that you're giving or at any point during the interview.
Yeah, it's a time to be very serious.
It just seems like behavior that doesn't fit the situation. The Coriams and private investigator Bill Anderson said they believe something happened to Rebecca because she wouldn't agree to an open relationship with the crew members. In 2017, Rebecca's former girlfriend, Tracy Medley, broke her silence and theorized Rebecca jumped to her death. Tracy told The Sun UK that Rebecca had talked about suicide before. Tracy said Rebecca was in turmoil because she was raped as a teenager. She also claimed that Rebecca used cocaine. There is a lot going on.
Sure is.
Here. And this is, the woman who you wanted to hear from. You wanted to know what she had to say about that night.
Right.
And what did she say? Her theory was that Rebecca jumped to her death. She claimed that she had been raped, but she also said that she used cocaine. And she may or she may have not. I don't know.
But that could make her act a little different.
Yeah, it also seems like a strange thing to throw into an interview, I guess. Well, since her body has never been found, obviously they have no idea what was in her system. Tracy said, I have nothing to hide. My silence was never an admission of guilt. My silence was to protect the image of a friend. I've spent 6 years reading bullshit claims from Rebecca's family that she was a fun-loving, never sad athlete with no issues and a love for life. Her disappearance to them could not possibly be due to suicide. Someone needed to be blamed for this. Unfortunately, they saw that opportunity with me. Rebecca felt like a misfit. She felt that her family was ashamed that she was a lesbian. She once mentioned how her sister was embarrassed of the new friend she started to hang out with. And unfortunately, we have this in many cases. People don't see situations the same way, right? The family sees Rebecca one way, but Tracy is painting a very different picture of Rebecca and how she was feeling.
And people can be like that, right? They could be this one person and portray this, how they are with their family, but when they're with their friends or their lover, they could be somebody different, somebody else.
So both Tracy and the family could be correct in that scenario.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that Rebecca could have been more open with Tracy than she felt comfortable being open with her family. We just don't know. I think this is also, assuming Tracy is telling the truth. Right? You always have to have that disclaimer with anyone who's talking about, someone or something having to do with the case. Tracy said she met Rebecca in 2010 while working on a cruise ship. They attended the same party. They flirted with each other the whole night and were inseparable after that. Soon after they started their romantic relationship, Tracy found out Rebecca used cocaine. Tracy said she went through Rebecca's phone and saw a text where she asked someone if they had more cocaine because she needed some. Rebecca was angry with her for going through her phone.
So if you believe Tracy, Rebecca was a cocaine user.
Yes. We don't know how much, but back to your point, is it possible that she was using that night? We have no idea, but you have to keep that in play. Tracy asked Rebecca what kind of rush cocaine gave her. Rebecca said she thought it had damaged her, so she didn't use it as often as she used to. Tracy admitted that Rebecca was frustrated by her lack of commitment. Tracy had a boyfriend named Devin Hyde, who was a barman on the ship. He was on shore leave when she met Rebecca. When Devin returned to the ship, he and Tracy continued their relationship. Rebecca was devastated. Rebecca was upset with Tracy the night before she went missing. She drank alcohol that night. Tracy tried to walk her back to her room, and Rebecca screamed, cried, hit herself in the face, and banged her head against the steel walls of the ship. It took 4 people to calm her down, and she was carried to Tracy's room. Rebecca woke Tracy up and said she felt like a failure because she wasn't brave enough to jump off the ship. Tracy told her the fact that she didn't go through with it proved she had something to live for. I mean, this is really painting a much different picture of what Rebecca Coriam was going through than I think the picture her family had in their minds of her at the time.
And it's very sad. If this is true, it's very sad.
On the evening of March 20th, Rebecca drank with Tracy and Devin, and they had a threesome in Devin's room, which Tracy claimed was initiated by Rebecca. At one point, Tracy was dozing off, and Rebecca said they should leave Devon's room, she asked Tracy to go for a walk with her, and Tracy said no. Rebecca wanted to put some clothes on before she left, so Tracy asked Devon to give her something to wear. And this kind of leads us back to what we've been talking about. Rebecca being captured on CCTV wearing what looked like baggy men's clothing. Tracy said she left the door unlocked so Rebecca could come back into the room. She realized something was wrong when she woke up and realized Rebecca never returned. Tracy told the Sun, people thought there was something sinister going on, but I never left that room. I have a wonderful husband and a beautiful child, but people have this perception of me that just isn't true. I just want to clear my name. I have nothing to hide. I never did anything to physically harm Rebecca. My gut tells me she jumped, only because there were previous attempts. Michael Coriam told the Sun that he couldn't comment on Tracy's claims. And I think for the Coriam family, some of this had to be very tough to hear. And my assumption is they probably didn't believe a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd ever want to believe that, right? That if your daughter was hurting like that and your daughter couldn't be the person she wanted to be when she was around you based off of what Tracy was saying, it'd be hard to handle that.
And maybe it's just because they didn't know, they never saw, she didn't disclose some of these issues to them. I don't know. I don't know what all was going on. And again, a lot of this hinges on the truthfulness of the statements made by Tracy.
Yeah. Could she be saying what she's saying just to cover herself?
Something up? Yeah. I think that's a possibility that you have to look at. You can't completely discount it. You know, as we wrap this one up, Rebecca Coriam disappeared 13 years ago. The official conclusion seems to be that she was swept overboard by a wave on Deck 5. Her family and private investigators fear there was criminal activity behind her disappearance. There doesn't seem to be any conclusive proof to support this. The exact cause of Rebecca's disappearance remains a mystery. And I don't know how they'll ever get to the bottom of it. If there really is nothing that captured what happened to her on tape, unless somebody comes out and makes some kind of confession. You know, I will say this. I do have trouble with the rogue wave theory.
Yes.
Just based on what everybody was saying about the really, really high walls behind that crew pool. That part is a little hard to go with. So what are the most likely theories? That she jumped overboard, which her family absolutely does not believe. Tracy believes that's what happened.
If you believe Tracy when she says that Rebecca was suicidal.
Had even talked about jumping overboard before.
Was also drunk.
And then, you know, the other thing that you have to look at is something criminal happening.
Yeah.
And whether that, you know, had something to do with Tracy and Devon, the kind of triangle that was going on there, or someone else.
Could have been somebody else.
Completely unrelated to them, or, you know, another crew member, or maybe even a passenger that hasn't been brought up in the investigation.
I think all you can do is speculate, right?
That's all you can do in a case like this. I mean, it is tragic no matter how it went down. But that's it for our episode on Rebecca Coriam. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Take the last train to Clarksville, and I'll meet you at the station. You can be here by 4:30, 'cause I made your reservation. Don't be slow. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. And I don't know if I'm ever coming home. Also, I can't believe you've said Clarksville this many times and no one has broken into song. And Gibby hasn't mentioned that time he was in that boy band. He was that, you know, teenage heartthrob. I remember seeing pics, you know, he was a spitting image of Mickey Dolenz, the only musically talented guy in the group. But, yeah, I'm only like 40 minutes in, so maybe there's still some singing. Yeah, stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Love it. little serenading.
Yeah.
But she's right. We probably forgot to talk about a few things. I didn't make the connection with Clarksville, to be honest with you.
I was just there.
Were you?
At the train station.
At 4:30?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Waiting.
I'm still waiting for the rest of my boy band.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is Josh from Hebron, Ohio, just east of Columbus. Thought I would call. I've got all the way caught up on regular TCAT, working my way through, getting finished up on True Crime All the Time Unsolved. Love the show, guys. Keep up the good work. I've got one down around my area maybe you guys could look into. It is, I know there's a man already known as the 22 caliber killer, but these guys are known as the 22 caliber killers. They're from down here around Newark, Ohio. Gary and Thaddeus Lewington. Be kind of interesting to see what you guys can find on it. I'm totally TCAT. Love you guys. And keep up the good work and keep your own time ticking. Bye.
And I'm Team Gibby. What? Did you hear that at the end?
No, I didn't. Yeah, appreciate the voicemail. We've actually had a couple of people suggest the 22 caliber killers case. And I don't know why we haven't done it. I gotta.
Because you lazy.
I'm lazy, man. I gotta get on it. But we appreciate the voicemail. So that is it, buddy, for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Stream your favorite drama movies and TV shows on Pluto TV. All for free. Watch all your favorite crime dramas like CSI and Blue Bloods, or your favorite action dramas like Breaking Bad on Stories by AMC or The Walking Dead universe. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of drama movies and TV shows. Download Pluto TV on all your favorite devices for free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
You know where your business would be without you. Imagine where it could go with more of you. Well, with Wix, you can create a website with more of your vision, your voice, your expertise. Wix gives you the freedom to truly own your brand and do it on your own. With full customization and advanced AI tools that help turn your ideas into reality. Grow your business into your online brand. Because without you, your business is just business as usual. Go to Wix.com.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.